Avatar, one of the greatest movies of the 2010s. I remember as a young kid going to the movie theaters with my dad and going to sit down and watching Avatar for the very first time, experiencing Pandora on the real screen and just seeing the beauty that encapsulates this great and awesome world. It's a wonderful movie, and it's definitely one of my favorites, and it's been on my top 10 list for quite some time. Avatar focuses on the story of Jake Sully and his friends as they explore the the planet of Pandora, where they're interacting with this brand new alien native tribe that worship this deity of the planet called Eywa. And Jake is having to face multiple dilemmas and multiple issues where do I follow the natives? Do I come and represent those which I've come to love over my time here? Or do I represent my people and represent my own humankind and destroy the planet? I think it's a really, really interesting story and quite a few very significant issues that Jake is presented with, and I think it's a very, very good movie. Moving forward, I think that in terms of science, in terms of how the movie portrays science, I think there's a lot of this movie is very, very deep into the world of science fiction. I think a lot of stuff is not very, very accurate in terms of scientific research. For instance, the transferring of consciousness from a person into an alien or into these natives, these native bodies, these native creations. I think that's not very accurate at all. I think it's very much just out of a sci-fi film. Science, we're not able to do that really right now in the real world. That's something that we're probably not going to be at it for a long time. So I think that's one area where the movie just kind of takes its liberties and just plays around a little bit. But a positive though, I think the way that the scientists, when they're in these bodies, how they interact with the natives, I think that's very accurate because it's very slow, it's very scientific. They understand how these native people work, they understand their deity and their god, and they understand their way of life, and so they're not trying to introduce themselves to the natives super, super fast. It's very, very slow, and it's very much, we're going to work on your terms and be friendly with you, and maybe you'll let us in. So I think that's one area where the movie is very, very accurate in terms of its scientific impact. Also, interestingly enough, I think that the dichotomy between the military leadership and the scientific leadership, where it seems that the human influence on Pandora is for the benefits of scientific research. They're there to study the planet, they're there to observe, they're there to gain as much knowledge and information as they can, but also there's this military presence there which wants to pillage and destroy, and under the guise of protection, they want to destroy Pandora and want to hurt these natives and really suppress that relationship that they could possibly have with the natives. So I think that's a really interesting relationship is between the scientists of the film and between the military of the film, which are often at odds, and in the end it looks like the military won, but we see in the end, spoilers, that Jake Sully and his friends, they succeed and they're able to save the natives and push back the humans away from Pandora, which I think is really, really cool. On to the ethics issue. I think this movie is riddled in ethical issues and dilemmas that Jake for one is presented with. So the first and foremost one that comes to mind is, do you join with the natives or do you join with humans? So Jake Sully early on in the movie got lost in the woods, and he was taken on by a young native girl who eventually became a love interest for him. And Jake, over time, became one of the tribe, became one of the people, and just associated more and more time with them. And so, of course, Jake came to love them. But when he found out that the humans wanted Jake to abuse that relationship and say, hey, you guys need to leave because we're going to torch this area, we're going to destroy things, you guys need to get out of here. The natives didn't want to do that, and Jake was at odds where it's like, do I stay with the humans? Do I work with the humans, or do I work with these natives because they're people I come to love? And so there's this really rich dilemma where Jake has to choose and decide what is most ethical here. Is the most ethical thing for me to choose my family, choose the people that I share a race with or share a personality with, or is my allegiance to these natives? And ultimately, in the end, Jake chooses the natives, which I think the audience would agree is the very right decision, because the humans want to rape, destroy, and pillage everything in their path. And so I think that's the biggest ethical decision ahead. So I think this movie is really brilliant in the way that it portrays science. I think it's very fun. I think it takes a very fun and fascinating take on science with the whole transferring of consciousness. I think that's a huge part of the movie. I think that's really, really cool. I think it's not very accurate, but I think it's great. Also, I think the dilemma that Jake has to deal with: do I choose my people or do I choose the natives? I think that's a huge part of the story. That's kind of the crux of the entire movie, and that's the conflict, and that determines the end. And I think that's what makes the movie really, really great. This is Avatar. Like I said, one of my favorite movies. I've seen this movie multiple times. I saw it first on the big screen. I love it every time I see it. And I'm so glad to have talked about Avatar in this time, and talked about its relationship with science and its relationship with ethics. And so, yeah, I think this is a great movie, and I recommend anyone that can go see it. Thank you so much.